Myself, Dr. Rafi Ramzan Dar. I am working as a lecturer in Government Degree College Kulgam of Jammu and Kashmir, and I am teaching their geography from last couple of years. And today I'm going to give my presentation on sustainable development and sustainable development goals. It's actually it's evolutionary assessment, then implementation strategies and challenges. First of all, let me thank to this Pruthvi Molachi Foundation for giving me opportunity to present my work. Okay, I'm going to start it now. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, you are audible.
Am I audible to everybody?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. Okay. I think there is some problem. I'm not. Okay. Yes. Sustainable development implies the development that meets of current generation without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. What it demands is the basic requirements of all and extending to all the opportunity to satisfy their aspirations and aims for a better life. However, if there is a degradation or a deterioration of environment in the process of development, the development will not be called as sustainable. Okay, I'm still okay. Aims and objectives of my presentation are, since this paper is based on secondary sources of data, so I have just limited its aims to 3 points only. The first is I will assess the historical development or the evolutionary development of the concept of sustainable development. Then I will enumerate the sustainable development goals or SDGs and the initiatives taken by the government of India for their implementation. And lastly, I will assess the challenges that need to be addressed for achieving the sustainable development goals. Something is wrong. I am unable to just switch to second slide. I don't know why. Just give me a minute. I have some problems there and I'm unable to fix it. Okay. Sustainable development conceptual framework goes like this. It's actually a core concept within global development policy and agenda, which provides a mechanism through which society can interact with the environment without any risk of damaging the resources for the future. In its essence, it is a development paradigm that calls for improving living standards without jeopardizing the Earth's ecosystems or causing environmental challenges. In a nutshell, we can say sustainable development demands that societies meet human needs both by increasing productive potential as well as taking care of the environment and ensuring equitable opportunity for all. Sustainable development goals. It's evolutionary tracing. First of all, it was June 1972 when sustainable development concept received its first major international recognition at a United Nations Conference on Human Environment at Stockholm. Then in December 1983, Brundtland Commission on Environment and Development was established by United Nations. And after a few years, in December 1987, this commission submitted its report that was entitled as Our Common Future, in which this report discussed in detail about the concept of sustainable development. Since the publication of this report, the idea of sustainable development, which was hitherto not known to people, has gained much currency. Then in June 1992, a conference was held at Rio de Janeiro, in which light was thrown on Agenda 21, okay, by the heads of 150 nations. What this Agenda 21 was actually and what it included a host of topics. They threw light on a lot of topics in this agenda for discussion. For example, a light was thrown on the development and environment, poverty alleviation, desertification, urban problems, healthcare and sanitation, etc. Then in September 2000, MDGs, Millennium Development Goals, were adopted at Millennium Summit. Their aim was to set out a series of time-bound and quantified targets, and the deadline was set up to 2015. Then in 2010, Johannesburg Declaration in South Africa was held for the assessment of these Rio outcomes of the meeting, which was held in 1992, called the Rio de Janeiro meeting. Then again in 2012, Rio Plus 20 conference was held to launch a process to develop sustainable development goals. Okay, in its continuation, sustainable development goals, what actually these are? It was in January 2016, United Nations approved Agenda 2030, through which 17 sustainable development goals came into effect. And these goals were adopted by 193 countries with the aim to foster economic growth, ensure social inclusion, and protect the environment. And Agenda 2030 in a nutshell, it had 5 main themes, which we generally call 5 Ps, namely people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnerships. Now, sustainable development goals. What are these 17 sustainable development goals? If we will have some look into these very minutely, the first goal, goal number 1, is regarding poverty, or in a nutshell, it is said as no poverty. It is regarding to end poverty in all its forms everywhere. Likewise, goal number 2 says zero hunger or end hunger, achieve food security, and improved nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. Goal 3 is regarding ensuring healthy lives and to promote well-being for all at all stages or ages. Likewise, goal 4 is regarding ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education and promote a lifelong learning opportunities for all. Goal 5 is to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. Goal 6 deals with ensuring availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. To ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. And goal 8 promotes sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. Goal 9 says to build a resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation. Goal 10 is regarding reduction of inequality within and among countries. Goal 11 makes cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Likewise, goal 12 is to ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. And goal 13 is to take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. Goal 14 is to conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development, which they say life below water. And goal 15 is regarding life on land, that is to protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems. And goal 16 is to promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development and provide access to justice for all. And lastly, goal 17 is building partnerships for all these goals, that is to strengthen the means of implementation and revitalization of the global partnership for sustainable development. Now, what initiatives have been taken for the implementation of the sustainable development goals by Government of India? On a very broader perspective, I have divided it into 5 or 6 initiatives. First is awareness development on SDGs, preparing vision documents and action plans, SDGs, aligning local development plans with SDGs, leave no one behind, preparing capacity building, resources and tools, and lastly, building partnerships. Let's have some deeper look into these goals one by one. First is awareness development on standard development goals. It is very critical actually to generate awareness of all the stakeholders to facilitate participatory and inclusive implementation on sustainable development goals. The states have devised their own strategies for sensitizing elected representatives and the officials at the state level or various district or local levels, as well as CSOs, civil service organizations, and communities. Second is the preparing vision documents and action plans to guide their efforts on the sustainable development goals. This charted out interlinkages across sectors as well as various departments and developed a context and purpose for synergy. So far, 23 states out of 29 have prepared their vision documents that are based on sustainable development goals. Now, the third is aligning local development plans with sustainable development goals. Local governments are best placed to put people first and ensure that no one is left behind. In India, 29 functions related to socio-economic development are devolved to local governments, as a consequence of which many of the sustainable development goals are directly related to activities carried out by local governments. Several initiatives have also been taken and are being taken to cast local development plans in the SDG framework. Now, preparing capacity building resources and tools. Development of capacity building aids and learning materials have been prioritized by various state governments. Different forms of resources have been used, such as comic books or comics for children, written materials on SDGs, manuals, training modules, e-learning modules, information booklets, targeting different sort of audience. Leave no one behind. All states have made this principle of leaving no one behind the leading actionable and monitorable parameter in program implementation. A number of states and union territories have taken initiatives to conduct vulnerability mapping and reinforce people's participation in various development programs to make them truly inclusive. Lastly, special initiatives have been taken to address the needs of the vulnerable population, such as women, disabled persons, scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, and children, etc. Then lastly, building partnerships. States are increasingly building partnerships with various stakeholders, such as multilateral organizations, academia, civil society organizations, and private sector to achieve the whole gamut of development targets. Now, challenges in achieving sustainable development goals. There are four types of challenges. The first one is challenges in financing sustainable development goals. Second is how to maintain peace, and third is how to measure progress, and then is accountability. Let's have a look. Challenges in financing SDGs. With the emergence of COVID-19 pandemic, as we all know, SDG financing gap has widened by an estimated $400 billion in developing countries, adding to the pre-COVID share of $2 to $2.5 trillion per annum. So the financing gap for SDGs in India has widened further, and development progress made under MDGs, Millennium Development Goals, also is on verge of reversal. So whatever progress we had made in MDGs, that's also on the verge of reversal. Heightened geopolitical tensions around trade and technology, growing external debt, unmet expectations of public-private collaboration, and lack of business models supporting sustainable development goals are some key issues facing the financing of SDGs. Second is regarding maintaining peace. As we know, maintenance of peace is essential for any type of development. A threat to international peace and stability by non-state actors is emerging as a major factor for both developed and developing countries. As we have recently witnessed a crisis in Syria that has forced 12 million people to leave their homes and made them refugees. So this is a blot on the achievement of sustainable development goals. Measuring progress. A number of targets in the sustainable development goals are not quantified. The indicators for measuring progress have not yet been identified, even if they limit to 2 indicators per target. There will be still 338 indicators to monitor and report. So having 169 targets is like having no targets at all. Lastly, accountability challenges there. There was a lack of accountability for inputs into Millennium Development Goals at all levels. But this challenge needs to be addressed in Sustainable Development Goals. The lack of priority in funds allocation within country budget has also been a problem during MDGs. Similar lack of accountability exists at ministry level, state level, and local administration level. So the officers on all these levels are not accountable, or they are not taking their responsibility the way they should take their responsibility. If we take sustainable development goals seriously, the accountability needs to be strengthened at all levels. Now, lastly, the way forward. What's the way forward? Sustainable development goals are expected to bring about a transformative impact on the development implementation process as well as the outcomes. Beyond the comfort zone of a business as usual approach, beyond it, new strategies, institutional mechanisms, and partnerships are necessary to yield the desired results. Then the Sustainable Development Goal Index will be computed every year based on the refinements of indicators and data methodologies, so that the yearly progress of the states or union territories can be closely monitored and gaps can be addressed. Now, a conscious effort has been made to move from a whole of government approach to a whole of society approach, with extensive engagement with not only central ministries, state or union territory governments, and local governments, but also civil society organizations, think tanks, United Nations agencies, and the private sector on a gamut of cross-connected issues pertaining to the Agenda 2030. When we say Agenda 2030, it does mean the agenda of Sustainable Development Goals. Special attention is also being given to the adoption, implementation, monitoring, and financing of SDGs in states which are backward in their development. Lastly, there is consensus on all levels that unless these backward states or backward regions of our country make significant progress, unless and until they are not making any progress, India will find it challenging to achieve its Sustainable Development Goal targets on time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi, sir. Any questions from the participants? Any question from the participants are welcome.
Hello. Hello.
Yes.
Yes, you're audible. Please ask your question.
How can create sustainable development approach in or improve approach in public? Means how can improve sustainable development approach in public?
Okay. First of all, dear, as you know, education is of very much importance. It's so vital. If you are going to educate people, let them know what it, how it costs, and how it benefits you. If you are going to prevent environmental degradation, if you are going to maintain the integrity and the beauty of your environment, it's going to prove very much beneficial for you in the long run. Fine. Secondly, limit your needs. Do not waste too much. Reduce, reuse, and that 3 R's are the basic thing that needs to be taken into consideration. That are very much important for a sustainable development of our environment and our lives.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Any other question? Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Ravi sir, for your valuable presentation.
Welcome.
Thank you.